Alright guys, Matt Burniston from the Mega Plush week. I don't know. I've lost track. Busy. Been animating like crazy. It's taking a little longer than I thought it was going to. A little longer than I wanted it to. But got Gambi helping me out still. It's going well. He's got a couple of shots he's been working on. It's going well. I've been cranking out a lot of shots. Brian Vowles has been helping out a little bit. He's kind of busy, so we don't want to bother him too much. But yeah, he's offered to help out a couple more shots as well, so that's cool. But yeah, this week what I want to do is talk about lighting. I'm not necessarily at the stage of lighting because I'm still kind of doing renders. There's a cop car outside. I'm still kind of animating, but I've rendered the first couple of shots. And even when I'm doing the animation, I'm still thinking about. I'm thinking about two things. I'm thinking about lighting and I'm thinking about the camera. More the camera because I'm obviously setting up the shots as I'm going. So actually, yeah, I'm going to talk about two things today. It's going to be lighting and camera. I'm not an expert on either of these things, but I'm going to show you, as always, just how I do things, what I've learned from doing this for however many years I've been doing it. So yeah, let's talk about that and just jump straight into it. Let's stop messing around. Alright guys, so here we are. What I thought might be the best thing to do is just have a quick scan through the first two episodes real quick. I'm going to talk about lighting and a bit of camera stuff in there, and then I can open up one or two of the shots in the third episode and kind of look a little bit more at a specific example and how I would kind of go about setting something up like actually in Modo. So we'll talk about the theory first. I say theory, it's theory based on me myself, but yeah, just kind of give you an idea. So basically, what I try to do is kind of, well, the camera and the lights kind of, it's part of the story. It's part of the storytelling, and obviously the world that this all lives in is kind of it's kind of dark already, which is obviously a stylistic choice. So knowing that, I've got to kind of light the scenes based on that, based on the story I'm trying to tell. So a lot of the stuff that happens on the street, there's these street lights that are just basically pointing down, and they're simply the spotlights just pointing down. And that works really well. One thing I do try to do is, I said in the past, is think about how it would be lit in real life. Especially for the second episode, I did a little bit of that in the interior scenes, using a lighting setup that would mimic, what would be there in real life, sort of thing. So we'll talk about a little bit about that as well. And that's basically this shot here is basically that. You've got these basically spotlights you can see that are just pointing downwards, that are from these lights, like I said. And I'm pretty sure, this was so long ago I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure that was the only light I had. Maybe I had another light at the side here just to highlight the side of his face and just put this side in shadow, just to give it a little bit of dimension. This next shot, again, the background is just the spotlights, but then this guy's got a bit of a rim light on him, and what I'll do, how the way I'll achieve that is just using the point light and do some light linking. I saw on the forums that some people are a little scared of light linking, so I'm going to talk about that real quick. I'll talk about that real quick and kind of hopefully make things a little bit easier and people less scared of it. This shot again, probably a point light. I think I had a point light down behind the ledge to kind of light this wall. I probably turned off all of the other spotlights below, and then another point light just to get the rim on this guy. And what I'll do is I'll cover this in one of the next videos. But what I'll generally do is kind of render the background and the character separately, and then comp them back together. That way I can, you know, the light linking isn't as necessary, because whatever lights I set up for the character, they're not getting, you know, the point light that's on this character isn't spilling out onto the background. So, you know, it's not, the light linking isn't so critical on some of the shots. This one here, I've got a point light for this rim again, and what I did was parent that to the actual character. So basically, as he moves, instead of him running in and out of that light, you can see it's pretty constant the whole way. So that kind of helps there. This shot, I think, is just that one down light. The flares and the bloom and stuff is all added in post-production. So I'll cover that in a future video. So here's an example of, you know, using light in the real world. So there's a light there, and I've literally when I put a point light there, and that's affecting the highlight on the bear. Sorry, you can see. This is a point light in the back to get the rim, but then as he you can see as he comes up the stairs, this light here starts to affect the front of his face and highlight, give it almost like a second rim almost. But as you can see, as he gets closer to it, it kind of affects that. So that was that shot. This shot's nice because he goes from the shadow. There's a light behind this fence, this mesh fence that's giving this nice shadow. Again, you know, using that, talking about story, using it to kind of project shadows is obviously a story thing. So this is like a nice, not necessarily a story thing, but a creative thing. So it's like I'm using that fence to kind of draw this really nice shadow on this guy, and I quite like that he comes out from behind a wall almost, so he's almost in shadow, and he's got this rim light, which I've probably got a point light here to achieve that. But then as he comes out, there's got this secondary light that then kind of highlights him from the side, which is quite nice. This shot again is a point light parented to the character. So as he moves, this light on the side and this light on this side, they stay constant. So yeah, a lot of this shot was kind of point lights and spotlights, just to get that, you know. Again, a spotlight here with the this is the edge of the spotlight. So as he crawls into the shadow. So yeah, that's basically the same techniques all the way through there. But then for the second one, the second episode, slightly different. The intro is kind of the same. Here, this was as well as lights. Obviously, you got like illuminated polygons, like which a lot of people use. I tend to just use lights because I feel like I can control them, especially for stuff like this. If I'm doing like a product shot in like a totally different style, like a product shot where I need reflections and that kind of stuff, I'll use luminous polygons. But for this, I generally don't use that. I just use I have the environment to reflect in the eyes and what have you, for example. So I don't necessarily need them. I just kind of use lights. But in this case, the neon was obviously a luminous polygon, and I can't quite remember. There's a light above it, which is always out of frame, but I can't remember if I popped like a point light there as well and made it pink, just to give this pink cast. I can't quite remember, but maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I think I might have, because you can see the pink light down here a little bit, and it kind of reflects into this area. So I think I put like a pink point light there just to kind of give the surroundings that idea of the this kind of pink spill on the floor. I think I'm pretty sure that I did that just to kind of sell that effect a little more. Again, these spotlights down to make these like pools of light on the floor. Pretty simple stuff. So then when we start going in the interior, obviously this desk lamp. It's got a little lamp light inside, and there's this lamp in the background which is lighting the scene. What I'll do is I'll put these lights in first, and then I'll kind of see where we're at in terms of the distribution of light, and then I can kind of add additional lights in afterwards to kind of add whatever additional light that I need. Again, spotlight just on his desk there, and I think there was some additional light in the ceiling on that shot. But this shot in particular, this was like the main interior scene. I don't know if you ever see the ceiling, but basically it's just a bunch of spotlights in the ceiling, like point lights, sorry, like kind of downlighters, you know. Here we go, you can kind of see them in the background, like around the bar. You know, you go into a nightclub and you have these, like the recessed lights in the ceiling. So I kind of try to mimic that, and you can see they kind of come around the bar. But as well as that, we had these kind of spotlights that were illuminating the stage. So it was kind of a mixture of, you know, these spotlights that are on her, and then these little downlighters that are kind of illuminating the tables and the rest of the bar, basically. But again, obviously wanted it to be kind of dark and kind of almost like seedy in there, so I didn't want it to be too well lit, but just enough to kind of get the you know, get the idea of what it's supposed to be like. Telling the story with the lighting, and then a rim light. She's got a rim light on her there, so it's just a point light situated behind her just to get that there. This guy was rendered separately, so I don't have to worry about the spillover to this guy. Pretty simple stuff. Again, these kind of lights that I'm talking about with the. So I just basically made a circle in the geometry, beveled it in, and then just put a point light in there, so it kind of illuminates the inside of it and spills out a little bit. Worked really well. Again, just another neon there, same as before. And then this shot was slightly different. I did actually use luminous polygons in here, so I literally took the bottom of the geometry of this kind of wooden, I don't know what you call it, like just the paneling along the side, and selected one loop of the geometry and just made it luminous. So then when you render it, obviously fills that light, and it feels as if it's got like LEDs or something under there. And then the ceiling lights, was it the same thing? That I think I maybe selected a loop there and did the same thing, but then also put a few point lights in the top just to flood the, so you could like kind of get these nice little pools of light again. Again, here we go. These are like these luminous polygons. This time I made a pink just to make them feel as if they were like little neons or something underneath. Yep. So then here, quite obviously I've got a light there, you can see that, so that's just probably a point light up there. Illuminate that side of the room. There you go. Oh, there you go. So there's these little, again, just make a circle in the ceiling and put like a little light in there. But anytime the character's on a dark background, I want to put a key light in just to kind of illuminate the edge of the character. Other times there's not a real need for it because you've already got this kind of or almost like, because they've been lit from the top, they've almost got like the rim light already. It's free basically. I get a free rim light by using that kind of that down lit from the top sort of thing. But yeah, anytime more apparent in this one. But anytime I've got like a character on black, I want to this shot especially, like without the rim lights on this shot. Where is it? This shot. Without the rim lights on this shot, he was super dark, and I just needed to kind of highlight this edge to kind of pick him out. And that's one of the reasons you use a rim light. And every now and again, I'll use I'll have a point light in the front too, just to kind of highlight this, so it's not too shadow. Just put a point light in front of him, and I don't know if it's just me, but you have to turn the point light down to like 0.001, and it just gives that tiny bit of light. If even if you have it at like 1, whatever the value is in Modo, it just blows everything out. So just got to be careful about the value you put in there. But yeah, I mean, it's just the other thing is like when I'm lighting, it's kind of just it's very much just moving things around and seeing what happens. I have a general idea of where to start, but that's not always right. So it's good just to kind of go in, get a base there, and then I can kind of just go in and start and drag things around and seeing what's illuminated. But we'll take a look at that in a minute when we look at some more examples. So then that takes us on to the camera work. This is a little bit more subjective, I guess. Choosing a camera, how do you choose a camera angle? There's different things. Again, it's a story thing. You can use it to tell a story. It's maybe more impactful on the story than the lights are. The lights are maybe more of an overall general overall feeling of what it feels like, but the camera can give you a way better, like more more of a storytelling capability. So I cut from very close-up shots, so you have this very close-up shot of this guy. Well, first of all, let's start from the beginning. So we start out with an establishing shot. So you have a wide-angle establishing shot telling you this basically sets up the whole story. So we're saying, look, this is the city. It's a big city. This is where the story's going to start. So it's always helpful to start out. If I'd have started here with this guy, it would be like, where are we? What are we looking at? What's happening? But by starting out with this, it's like, okay, so it's a city. A lot of people, the first thing they say is New York. It isn't supposed to be New York. It kind of looks a little bit like New York, but it's just a generated set of buildings. So it's not specifically a model of New York, but everybody who sees it, first thing to say is New York. So that kind of establishes where this is taking place. And from there, what I've done is I've kind of merged this into the next shot, which is, this establishes we're deep in the city and we're kind of at this macro level of right down on the streets, and then we introduce the character. So then we have this introduction phase, which is a kind of almost like a tease, like you see the leg run past, and then you have this panning shot. Moving cameras generally give a little bit more action, a feeling of pace and action, whereas a locked off camera usually a little slower, in my experience. So then basically there's 2 little teaser shots of like what are we watching. It's like these little spindly legs. Is it what is it? Is it a toy? Is it a sock monkey? Whatever. And then eventually the reveal. So we show the reveal, and we just give this kind of, he's coming towards the camera, and then you really see him. So we give him a nice big full close-up of this is the character. And in this case, it's not the main character, but it's one of the main characters of the short film. So we give him a nice full frame and say, look, this is what we're dealing with here. So then we have another shot, and then again we tease the second character. So we show him from the back, very darkly lit. We just a little highlight on the edge, and you're like, okay, who is this, and why is he watching this monkey? You'll also notice it's on a bit of an angle. You see these diagonal lines. Usually, if you have diagonal lines in a shot, it gives a little more tension. This is something that I've learned from other people saying, not necessarily. I didn't make this up. So like, from what I've heard, from what I've been told, is if you have diagonal lines in a shot, it creates more tension. And there's lots of examples of that, like Hitchcock and slightly older movies that they'll do this a lot, where it's like angled lines and creating tension, as well as using the music and other things to create that. But it makes your eyes a little bit uneasy, I guess, is the idea. So you see it, and maybe not consciously, but subconsciously, it kind of it's a little bit more jarring to the eye. So the idea, it's again subconscious. So I'm subconsciously saying there's some tension here, and then another teasing shot for this character. and another teasing shot for this character. So you have only ever seen him from behind right now, and I wanted to keep it like that, so it kind of, it's a bit of a again, tension of who is this guy, why is he chasing this monkey, sort of thing. And also what I wanted to do is try and make him look like the bad guy to start out with. Again, this is an angle shot. We've got a diagonal line. It's not, the camera isn't flat to the ground plane, so you have these diagonal angled lines, a little bit of tension. Also camera shake in this one, so you can see the slight rocking to side to side, gives it a little bit more action, makes it feel a little bit more action-like. We reveal a little bit more of the character, but because it's so fast, if you frame by frame it, you can see him, but it's so fast you still really can't see him. This one is just very heavily motion blurred right up in the face, and this is a bit like, kind of that Blair Witch thing where it's like the camera's right in your face and you can't really see what's happening. Everything's super blurry, and again, it just adds that feeling of like it's a chase. It's this monkey's kind of scared for his life. And a wide shot there just to kind of mix it up a little bit. Again, focusing quite closely on the monkey here, but also I've got like more of a wide angle, so you can kind of see the environment, and you can see he's in this environment. He's running down this alley, whereas the previous shot, it was super close on his face. You couldn't really see the background, so he could be anywhere. So you got to think about that, like using the right length of lens, so the smaller the number, so like 10 millimeters or 20 millimeters, it's a wider angle, so when you get close to a character it's going to distort the character, but also you'll see more background. A longer lens, 100 millimeters, 150 millimeters, it will flatten the scene, so everything will feel almost the same size, similar size, but you also, it's more difficult to get more the environment in there. So you got to think about that kind of stuff too. And this is basically the reveal of the bear here, and this is like his hero shot. So he's sliding down this chain, and this is the first time you see the front of his face in a shot. So it's like a really nice, just establishing shot, and showing like he can do all these crazy things like sliding down a wire. This part of the film, you can see that the monkeys are slightly smaller in the frame, and you see a lot more of the environment again. And the idea of this is, when you have like a wide angle like this, it kind of makes the character feel small, and it emphasizes that feeling of like he's alone. He's a small thing in this bigger world, and a lot of movies do that. So you'll see like a guy in a desert. An example recently, HBO, the True Detective, the end of the second season, he's in the desert at the end, and it's a super wide angle shot, and he's tiny, he's like really tiny in this desert, and the idea is that he's such a tiny being in this big world, and he's so alone, you can't see any other people there. So that's obviously again a stylistic choice to kind of help the emotion of him being alone. Again, not this one's not as wide, but I could have maybe pulled it back a little bit and made it a little bit wider and had him really in the shadow. So that was the idea behind them shots. You kind of get it a little bit here. This shot, it's so also helps to give the distance. Like this helps with the distance, but it's this monkey in this big space, and this big bad bear is in the foreground. Again, and then another part of the camera is not only the movement, but also like the shifting of focus here. So this is a good example. You have the bear, and he starts off and he's out of focus, and you're focusing on this tiger, on the sock monkey, but you can still see what's happening in this motion. You can see your eye still understands that highlight is a gun maybe, and that's his head, and then as soon as you see his hand in the gun, you know it's a gun, and then that's when we pull the focus, and boom, you have this guy, and that really gives that feeling of depth, and it's saying to the audience, now concentrate on this is where the action's happening, this is what's happening. So that's like a nice little transition between saying, okay, we were talking about the monkey, now we're talking about the bear, so concentrate on this. This is like a special effects shot, classic, just coming out of the barrel. I wanted just to, give it a bit of that, like almost like Transformers or one of them high-end special effects things. So that was the idea behind that. Again, like a super shallow depth of field and slow motion and all that kind of stuff that adds to that. And again, the timing. So it's not just the position of the camera. It's not just the focus of the camera, but it's also the speed of the camera. So this is super slow motion. These last two shots are super slow motion. So it's slow motion, fast, slow. So again, that gives that sense of, take notice. This is in slow motion for a reason. You really want to capture what's happening in that moment. Here we got like a lot of camera shake on this. You can see, so as he gets shot, like the camera's panning up and down quite a bit. And again, that's to kind of convey that feeling of this monkey is kind of in shock, like what's happening, where do I look? Again, another wide angle there, and the focus pull. So who are we looking at? And this is kind of saying the monkey's looking up, and he sees the bear, and we see the bear at the same time as that focus pulls. And then back to the bear, and then this is like there's also another technique in filmmaking called like the line, and crossing the line and not crossing the line. So this is a bit of an example of that, where we're down here looking from this this perspective, and then we go to the bear's perspective, and you'll see it in like more things that have got like dialogue. So like a lot of sitcoms and stuff, you'll kind of, two people will be talking to each other and the camera will be behind one person, and you see the one guy like behind the guy's head, and it's usually out of focus, and then you have the person who's talking in focus, and it's on the left hand side of the screen, and the person in the foreground's on the right hand side, and the person who's talking is on the left hand side of the screen, and then they switch the camera behind the other person when the dialogue changes. And you've got to be careful about what side of the screen the people are on, because there's like an imaginary line in between these people, connecting these people, and if the camera crosses that line, then they shift places on the screen, and it freaks people out. So you've got to be careful about who's on what side of the screen when you move a camera. And if you want to find out more about that, check out breaking. It's called like breaking the line or crossing the line. And there's YouTube videos about that you can check out. Hitchcock, there's a really famous, I think it's Hitchcock again, there's a really famous scene where he breaks the line on purpose, and it adds tension to the shot. Well, he keeps it in the line, he keeps on one side of the line, and all of a sudden when he wants to, he breaks it, and that's what causes the tension. So then, from here it's pretty much the same thing. You have these shots here. He comes in again, another focus. So we're focusing on the sock monkey. All of a sudden, the character appears, and then we focus on the foreground. This thing again, another kind of camera effect. This is where you pull the camera back and you zoom in at the same time, or you zoom out and push forward. Or I can't remember quite. I always have to set it up in the 3D scene to work it out, but you pull the camera back. You must pull the camera back and you zoom in with the camera lens, and it gives this effect of, it kind of distorts the perspective, which works really well. I think it's called, can't remember what it's called. I've got a video on my Vimeo page that I go through and talk about that. So if you want to check out my Vimeo page, check that out. This is a cool shot. You see the monkey in the eye, and then we pull out real quick, and then you get the gun, which I thought was quite nice. So showing that he's looking. It's difficult for these characters to see where they're looking because there's no pupil, and their eyes don't move left to right at all, up and down. So this was a nice way to kind of show that he had him in his sights, which worked really well. We just got some close-up shots, just varying the camera angles that I wanted and needed here. Some of them are tight, some of them are wider. And then we have this shot, which is just the finisher. Just rotate around. So yeah, that kind of gives you an idea of that. Let me just spin through this one real quick, but I don't think there's anything that much more interesting. Here we got the line here, the slight diagonal line on this, because we've got the right before this, he sees this. This is like a straight shot, and then he sees this, and then we get a little bit of an angle, just to be like, what's going on, you know, sort of thing. Just adds a little bit of that, again, subconsciously. Straight shot, straight shot, straight. That's all good. You have these close-up shots, just showing detail. I didn't want to reveal who this character was. It didn't matter to the story. So all I really did was just have his hand. It's like a classic bad guy from like a cartoon when you were kids, or like James Bond. You see the guy and he's stroking his cat on the chair, and you just see his hand. You know, it's like his evil hand with his cat. So I kind of wanted that, where it was like all you see is his hand and his mouth talking, just to kind of keep the audience guessing who this was. And then this guy as well, same thing. So who's calling who? What's going on? Yeah, just that. You never even see this guy's face. You just see his hand. So that was a cool way of just kind of giving a little bit of suspense there. This transition's cool. We transition from one place to another. We're using the environment, and if you watch TV and what have you, they do that a lot of that happens quite a lot. So kind of use that technique. A wide shot here to establish the environment. We did it at the beginning again a little bit, like not as much as the other one, but because it's part 2, you already kind of know where we are. But this kind of establishes that he's outside of this shot. So every time you go into a new environment, you want to do that. So this one is, you know, it transitions from this one to here. So you see that he's in an office. You know it's in an office because it's a security camera. It's got an office lamp and a desk and what have you. So you know it's in an office. If I'd have cut straight to this shot, you'd be like, where is it? What's happening? I don't know what's happening. So again, just using them. And then this one is establishing that it's a different phone. We saw the previous phone. We saw this phone. He's talking. Then we see this phone ring. So we know this is in another office. We know it's somewhere else. And obviously you can see the desk and the paper and what have you. And then we see this shot, which establishes that it's a different desk, and you have these characters in the background. So again, that's not necessarily character work, but like story. It's not camera work, but it's using camera work to kind of help with the story. And then this shot, we move into a new place, but we establish it with this shot, you know, and then we can punch in closer details. Again, focus shift. So we were with the tiger, change focus, and now we're with the cheetah. So there's a little transition there. And then again, when we transition to the next environment, we tell you where it is. You know, I don't go from like, if we went from here, she comes down, does this, and says, "Come with me," and then you never see where he goes. The viewer wouldn't know. So you say, "Look, this is where he's going. He's going to the VIP room." It also helps later and then we have a wide angle shot, and this is the VIP room. So we know he went in the VIP room, and this is the VIP room. Just showing the audience what's happening, where it's going. It also helps at this part here that the guy can point at the VIP room. So that also helped. But yeah, other than that, I think it's pretty much the same. Let's have a look. We have a bit of an angle there. Him jumping down. Here you can see this camera angle, this camera view here. It kind of rotates on its axis to make it get more of an angle as it's going. So that's kind of creating more tension as the shot progresses. Again, this is angled. It's not straight. The camera's not straight. classic eye-opening shot. And I think as this happens, let me see. It's a kind of a straight shot. Well, it's kind of an angle. It's not that obvious because the only point of reference you have is this. But then as she kills him, it kind of gets more angled. I don't know, maybe a little bit. And then we finish off with just kind of showing that we were back in that room again. This was the only shot I never really showed that it was where we were going, but it kind of became obvious from here. Maybe was it this shot? We kind of think we already thought he went out of that door. We never show him leaving, going out of the door, but I don't know. I think it worked. Like once I'd edited together, I think it worked, showing that he kind of walked. Oh yeah, okay. So he walked towards it. It's kind of got cut out of shot, but it does actually say fire exit, and you see the door close, and then I guess you would assume that door leads to this door. So yeah, that's basically the idea of, just some of the ideas of setting up cameras and how that adds to the story. So I'm just going to jump into Moto real quick, and then I'll go through some more of this in depth. All right, so check it out. This is one of the shots from the third episode here. I've got this window open over here, as I always do. This is just my camera view. Simple stuff here. We have some stuff. There's going to be some stuff happening in the background, but I want to concentrate on this character, so we're going to use a little bit of depth of field just to kind of do that. Also, this is going to be more about lighting, but just as the camera, just saying about the camera, we have this character. She's towards the right here, and then we're going to have this background stuff. Just kind of framing it in a way that makes it easy for the eye to understand. Making almost like this little window here. But like I said, the depth of field will help with that. So then basically in terms of lighting, I haven't really, other than the lighting in the scene, and someone's drilling upstairs, appreciate that. The lighting in the scene, I don't know what this light is all about. Let me just turn that off real quick. You can see that in these spotlights we've got these the street lights. We've got spotlights in all of them, which is cool. So in the background we'll have that. Sorry, let's pull this over again. In the background we'll have these spotlights highlighting the background there, which is cool. I'm just going to auto save, so let me just let that just do its thing. We also have these lights from the intro, which I could probably just turn off. I won't need them, so they can just be turned off because they're out of shot. So that's cool. So yeah, basically the basic lighting I've got so far is just these spotlights in the background. So let me just hit F8 real quick. We'll see what we have. It's quite a heavy scene, so it's a little minute to get a preview going up on this. So there you go. You can see these spotlights there, illuminating this background. As well as that, there is actually a directional light in there. What I was using that for was just to fill in some of the shadows. So in some of the shots I use it, in some of the shots I don't use it. In this occasion I probably won't end up using it. You can also see there's no textures on here. You can see when I turn that direction light off, we totally lose this character, which is fine for this shot, because basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you how I'm going to light this character. This background all looks great. You can see how now there's a little bit more contrast. You can start to see these other spotlights. With that light on, you lost that a little bit. So yeah, I just wanted to just show that. I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave this material on. All this is still textured, obviously, but I'm just going to leave this material on for now, just so we can really look at lighting rather than lighting and textures, because You know, well, you know, it makes sense to have the textures there, but also I just want to explain about like setting up a rim light and that kind of thing. So I don't want the textures to get distracted, and also this renders a little quicker. So as you can see, yeah, there's no lighting on this character right now. What I do need to do though is I do need. Oh, so we already have one. So there is already a light up here. So what we could do, this light. Let's see how this light's looking. So let me just go to a top view. And you can see. Let me just move this out of the way. You can see this the dimensions that this light has got. But obviously the floor intersects that at some point, so that isn't really illuminating her that much, as we can obviously see from here. But what I could do, first thing I could do, one of the ways I could light it is basically pull this over and pull this over the top of her a little bit. Obviously it's cheating. That's not where the light is in relation to the actual street lamp, but it doesn't really matter, because you know, as long as this shot looks good and it doesn't look totally wrong. You know, if I added some crazy lights and was like, wow, that now the character doesn't feel like it's been lit correctly, then that's another thing. But because it's just moving this light slightly, it isn't too big of a deal. So let me just maybe just pause this real quick. Don't mind the drilling. Sorry, struggling with this a little bit. There we go. So I'll just pull that, zoom into that. There we go, that's a better idea. Maybe just pull this over and have it. It doesn't even have to be direct, it could be like to the side there. So let's re-go with this and see what we get. So now we got this awesome downlight, you know, on the character, which is pretty awesome actually. That could work. I could render this as is. And use that. That would be great. This bit, maybe I don't want this bit to be highlighted, but you know, like I say, what I can do is when I render this, I render the elephant out separately. I render the background out, and then I render the elephant. So I'll turn this light on for her, and then when I render the background, maybe I move it back to where it was, because this wasn't actually being highlighted at that point. I quite like this. Talking again about the story of the character and the introduction of the character. She's been introduced in this shot, but I actually kind of want to keep it a little bit of a secret of what she looks like until a little bit later on in the film. So I quite like this idea of it being quite harsh and just showing the basic outline of her. So that's one option of what I could do. So let me let's grab that light and just if you right click, you can do edit a color and turn that green, and then I can remember which one that is. Also, I'm just going to go in the model tab real quick, so I've got a little bit more space, and move some of these panels out of the way. So I'm just going to turn this off for speed. So let's see. Okay, so that's our camera there. That's our character in there. She's not going to show up in here, unfortunately, unless I turn on deformations, but I know she's in there, so that's cool. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in and just add a point light. So create light, point light, and that's going to end up at the origin as a default. So what I can do then is just go and grab that. Where is it? There it is. Grab that, and I'll drag that over to here. And it's in the floor as well, so let me just get it out of the floor. We'll put it there. And then what we can do is hit F8, hit play. And then what you can see is, obviously it's illuminating this wall really badly, but you just starting to get this rim on the edge of her. It doesn't help that that wall's there, obviously. She's sitting just behind, you can see where the swords are, she's sitting right behind there. So what you can do is just interactively move this around. And this is what I'll do a lot of the time, so just when I'm setting up a rim light, I'll just turn all the other lights off, and I'll just get this exactly where I need it, exactly where I want it to be. If this wall wasn't here, obviously the rim light will be different because you can imagine this light here. It's being blocked by the wall, you know. So we're getting a certain amount. If I move it towards the wall, we get less light, you know. But if this wall wasn't here, I could put it a lot further behind her and just get a thin slither of light, which is how I did the rim light on the other characters. But you know, this is still giving that exact example of, you know, getting that rim light in there. The other thing you'll notice is this light is really white and the other lights are kind of yellowy. Usually, on this short film at least, all my lights are set to 3500 Kelvin. So you just type that in there and you get this really nice yellow light. And then when I do my color correction on that, then this ends up being a lot nicer. So say this is what we want. I quite like this, and let's just turn on this one as well, just to see how this. So now you can see we have that top-down light, and then we have this rim light. It's kind of nice because you get the little bit of highlight on the eye from the rim, from that point light. I'm thinking it's this one. I should probably name it. Yeah, it's this one. But then also we can go in and just dial down its intensity a little bit as well, because I think it might be a little too bright. Having them both on together might be a little bright. Also, seeing it affect this background is kind of making it a little more difficult to work out what's actually happening. So first of all, I'm going to take you through some light linking. So let me just turn this one green real quick. Turn this one green, so we know we're talking about both of these lights. You could rename it or just whatever. I sometimes do this and just do them green so I can see. So what I'm going to do is just select both of these lights. So light linking, super simple. You just click on groups and you just do new group. Make sure you have the two items selected, the two lights. And then what I'm going to do is just call this rim light or elephant rim light, whatever you want it to be. So standard and mode from selected items. So you can either do it from channels, or whatever you want, but you make an empty one and then drag whatever you want in. But from selected items works really well. And then nothing happens, right? You get a new group, but nothing happens. So basically then what you want to do is, the way I've got these, the shader tree set up, I've got it working real nicely because just the way I did it when I imported in my elephant file, it comes in as its own group with its own shader in the top of it. But basically what you'll want to do is you have your background, all your background elements and textures and what have you with a shader, and then all your foreground elements in front in a group with a shader inside the group. And then what you can do is go into your shader. If you don't know how to do that, by the way, you can just grab a bunch of textures. If I wanted to grab like 3 of these, I could grab them, drag them above here, and then just right click and do maybe not, you can't right click. I think you just could do Control G. Control G, there you go, and it makes a group. You can rename it whatever you want, and then just do add layer, special, shader, and drop that shader in the group and drag it above your previous shader. So you drag that up and outside of there, and then that'll not be affected by this shader because it's calculating all these, then shading it, and then calculating this, and then shading this. It's from bottom to the top. So then basically what I can do in this shader, let's call this the background shader. You can even rename it if you want. I can go in here and what it says control light linking. You can do light group, which is what we just made. I've got a load of groups because of the rigging and stuff, but let me see if I can find this. What did I call it? I called it elephant. What did I call it? Elephant light, elephant rim light, right? So it's there. If you had a simpler scene, this obviously wouldn't be as complicated, but elephant rim light. So we select that, and then you can either choose to include it or exclude it. So basically all these textures below here, or this one, because all of these have been overwritten by this one material, but all these textures now are being excluded from that group. So that's it. As simple as that. That's all you have to do. So as long as you get your shader tree in the right order, it's relatively simple. And now you can see that it's actually a little much because this is in so much darkness that this lighting is too harsh. You know, it pops out way too much. So then maybe what we could do is go back in and turn on that. There was a directional light that we had. Oops, it's going to the shade. It's easy to find. There was this directional light that maybe we could turn back on. We could potentially turn that back on. And what that does is it's obviously brightened this up, this background, these shadows, everything, and giving a little bit of light here too. So this looks a little less harsh now. I know once I get the fur on, it's gonna make it a little different. But then you can go in and tweak these. So maybe I don't use this spotlight at all. So I can turn that off, and now we get a little bit of light on the side of her face, and that kind of looks a little bit more natural, like it's coming in from the outside here into the alley, and it's just highlighting this little bit of a body. Or we could turn that off and turn this back up. Turn that on and turn this back off, and then we get a different idea. So it's lighting it from the top again, like we already talked about. But this background's a little bit nicer lit. I could go in and make another group, another light linking group, and make that directional light not affect this character, because then that way I don't get the highlights here, which maybe I do or don't want. I kind of like this, but if I wanted it properly black, I could turn the directional light off, make a new group just with the directional light in, go into the shader for the elephant, and exclude that. So that's another way of doing it. So yeah, just setting up these. You can just set up these whatever lights you need and want to affect whichever part of the character you want. And yeah, like I say, it's kind of it's very subjective. Of, do you want the light on the edge, or do you want it on the top, or do you want it fully lit? And that's a decision you have to make as a director or as a creative person. That's your decision. But having this preview window open and just moving lights around is very simple to do. And just build up a shot. Turn all the lights off and turn one light on and see how it affects everything. When getting started, that was what I would have to do. I'd have to turn every light off and then turn each light on individually and see how it's affecting things, because sometimes if you have 6 or 7 lights in a scene, you don't quite know what's affecting what, and it's very easy to get confused, and you start changing values of things without really knowing what you're doing. So it can get a little bit confusing. So I like this. This looks kind of nice. I don't like that spotlight is not affecting this wall. So then what I can also do is just go into this group and just take out the spotlight. The point light I still want in there, but this spotlight I can just remove. So I can just do remove item from this group, and now that spotlight will affect the background as well, because it's the light linking. I've taken it out of the link, if you know what I'm saying. So it should technically affect this wall if it's in the right position. There you go. So it affects this wall. Maybe a little bit too much. Maybe I can move it a little bit, just so you can get a little halo or something on there. But yeah, and obviously don't forget you can go into all of the settings of the spotlight, and just if you want, you can change the intensity. The intensity of this one's pretty high, so maybe knock that down by half. Change the corner angle, change the edge softness. You can see the edge softness is kind of tight, so maybe the edge softness is a little less, a little more. Sorry, so maybe change that to 20, and the blend will be more. I can change the corner angle, so the actual the corner angle is the size of the light, the spot. Basically, the size of the spot is what we're talking about. So maybe I can change that down to like 20, maybe, and see how that affects things. You can see that circle got a lot smaller. Maybe she's not even in the light now. Yeah, and you can see it's doing a similar thing now to the spotlight, actually, the point light we had going. Maybe actually just turn that back up. Obviously, the smaller you make the cone, the less light that's coming out of the light as well, I think. So there you go. That's actually quite nice. She's very in shadow, but then you got this. Maybe this can get jacked up even more. So maybe this is like 300. And you gotta be careful. Obviously, you pump this up too much and you get a blowout. This is kind of blown out at the top here in this spotlight, but it's quite nice once you get it in the blur. This is super nice now. So you can see we have this highlight, but obviously this side of it is all in shadow. Maybe I could take a point light and put it in here. I could take a point light, another point light, and put it in here, and that might help. So actually, let's do that real quick. Item, create light, create point light, and go and grab that. And let's bring that over. And we'll just pop it there. Let's bring it up off the floor. Bring it down a little bit. So yeah, we know our character's here, and this shadow, this particular shadow was too dark in here, and that's obviously crazy. Like, we've gone way too far there. But let me just grab this first of all. Go in it again and just turn that to 3500. Get rid of that whiteness. And this is what I was saying earlier about turning the value of these point lights right down, because this is, I think, default is 3, is it? Default sets to 3. Well, even if you turn this down to 1, you think, oh, okay, that's a third of the amount. You think a third of the amount will be all right, but it's still quite a lot. So then what I'll do is, if you just want it to be a tiny bit of fill, you know, without it was 100% black. With it is too much. Put it down to like 0.1 or 0.01. And all of a sudden you just get this. It's just filling in the shadows ever so slightly, you know. So maybe I can go to 0.05 even. And then that's even a little better, even 0.03. There you go. So instead of that shadow being 100% black, I don't like this shadow it's casting. So you've got two options. You either turn the shadow off. Sometimes I'll do that, just turn the shadow off totally. And by doing that, you just get it's highlighting this, but you're not having the shadow. You can do that. Sometimes it looks a little unnatural once you get it in there. Or I could just move the light up on the y-axis, and then that would cast the shadow more downwards, and maybe it wouldn't be as visible. Also, go into the radius and turn the radius up, and then what that'll do is it actually softens the light, basically. So as it hits something, it would be more shadowed. But yeah, if we do like a before and after, you can see she's in the highlight here. Maybe just turn the spotlight up a little more. It's kind of crazy number, but 500. And then what we got is a real nice hard shadow, hard highlight here. And then instead of this shadow being totally black, you lose a lot of detail there. You know, I quite like it. I'd have to see it rendered. I have to see it with the textures on, but this might be a little much. By adding that point light in there at 0.03, which is barely anything, it just lifts that shadow ever so slightly, and then you get just that little bit of detail in there. So once I add a little bit of color correction and stuff, it'll darken down again. But you can just sometimes it's not good to have 100% black shadow in there. And yeah, maybe I can highlight this a little more, or you know, mess around with it and see what you can come up with. And maybe this spotlight isn't right. Maybe I put the point light back in and kind of work with that. But I quite like how this is looking. It's like really nice contrast from where we started with. And that point light is affecting this here. You can see this here. So you know, that's obviously something I'd have to look into. Maybe I want it to affect this wall, but not this. So I could grab the wall, bring it above, and do a light linking. And link it to both the elephant and this wall, or just put this texture in its own group and put a shader in there and exclude it from that, so then it's not affecting this. A couple of options there. So yeah, that's basically lighting. I just want to go in quick, very quickly, and just look at a couple more shots here and talk about just some camera stuff. Obviously, camera's super easy to set up. It's not as difficult as like dialing numbers and stuff for your lights and stuff, and having multiple lights, because it's obviously just one thing. But you know, this is I just want to show this opening shot. So we have the establishing shot of the thing, showing where we are. We're in the city. We're on a rooftop. We pan down, and we introduce some of the characters. And then we have a straight on shot just to punch in. So we show who the characters are, and then the action starts. So then we see the character looks to the left and looks to the right, and then we're focusing on this character. So I'll just move the camera around a little bit to make her highlight her as the main character we're looking at, punching in detail, and then we want to concentrate on this guy. So I'll just span the camera back around this way so he's more in focus, and that's that. So that's just a couple more camera points of showing that, and then we have this sort of almost another establishing shot that we were down here, and we're just moving the focus of the action over here, which is when we get that next shot that we just looked at. So that's that shot where she goes there, and then that's the shot we just looked at the lighting. So just trying to tell the story with the camera, like the camera motion, highlighting which characters you want the viewer to look at, and then leading the if I just jump straight to this shot, it might be a little more difficult. You would still see these characters here, so it might not be too bad, but it might be a little difficult for the viewer to see where we've gone. So by leading the viewer down the alley, holding the viewer's hand basically, and saying, look, okay, we've moved over, this character's appeared, and that's where she is. So just telling the story with the camera, and obviously there's no dialogue, so it's a little bit more crucial that the camera work is working properly. Alright, so that was lighting and camera. A little bit about both. Obviously, like I just say again, I'm not like a professional in either. I'm not like I didn't go to school for this stuff, so I'm just kind of what I've learned along the way, teaching myself. Both from like doing 3D as also the camera stuff as well. The shooting with the camera, getting used to knowing how a lens works and that kind of stuff. So yeah, hopefully that was interesting. And next week, maybe next week or the week after, I might start doing them every 2 weeks, just kind of lumping them together a little bit more. As obviously the production is a little bit more intense than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, maybe next week a little bit, maybe the next video a little bit of dynamics maybe. Again, I'm not like a professional, and there's only one real dynamic shot in this. There's only one that I can think of, maybe one or two. So we'll take a look at that next week, and maybe a little bit of rendering as well. So I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, thanks for watching, and catch you soon. Bye.